Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Show. Happy, hopefully, Championship Monday to everyone out there. Eventful Week 17. Just goes to show, guys, any given Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, we can have some madness going on in the football world. So fun stuff indeed, and we're here to break it all down and get into the next step, that being some playoff guillotine action. But I cannot accomplish this alone, and accordingly, I am joined by Mr. Guillotine himself, Paul Charchian. Charch, big win for the Vikings, and hopefully for some of your guillotine squads as well.
I went 1-1 in my guillotine finals. What I played against, the one I lost in, and I'm bitter, and this is the one that had a lot of money attached to it. I played against Trey McBride, who got his first receiving touchdown of the year. Malik Neighbors, his first ever 2-touchdown game of his career, and Jaden Daniels. They scored 100 points by themselves. That was brutal. That was not fun to watch, that one. Yeah. So 1-1 in my finals in my guillotine leagues, but hey, we got one home, and that'll have to work from there. Whole other league. I'm not going to bore you with my Empire League story because that's another good story. But well, maybe at the end when we're trying to figure out how do we burn an extra 3 minutes at the end of this show. Then I'll complain about my Empire League. Yeah,
exactly. So hey, man, all you had to do, Charge, was start Drew Lock. All right, wasn't that hard? I don't know why you didn't think of that.
He was available. Waiver wire, right?
That goes for everyone out there. The only person to blame is the man of the mirror. Let's take some accountability for once, okay? So, yeah, 5 touchdowns, one of the best statistical performances ever from Drew Lock. No, that's not in our show sheet for today, but I'd be remiss if I did not bring that up. But, Charge, we do have some bigger and allegedly better things to talk about, the first of which being Brock Bowers breaking the rookie reception and tight end yards record. How high would you be drafting him in 2025 drafts?
High, and higher than most, I can assure you. I'm going to be that guy that's reaching for Brock Bowers. He'll be my top-ranked tight end. Will he be yours, Ian? I mean, is he going to be tight end 1 for you, do you think, in the offseason?
So I was thinking about that because let's face it, this year George Kittle did outscore him, but George Kittle also already with an age starting with a 3, going to be a more crowded offense. I get those things. The real tough one, I think, is Brock Bowers versus Trey McBride. We're talking about a difference of 0.2 PPR points per game. However, Church, as we've seen, the whole touchdown reception thing for Trey McBride holds up against most tight ends, but not necessarily Bowers, who, let's face it, hasn't exactly been making himself a staple in the end zone either.
No, he can get a lot better there. It's early to know. I think the big question is the Raiders' offseason, right? When we last talked about Bowers' draft position, it was like a month ago, and at that time, the Raiders held the first overall pick. But they have since foolishly won 2 in a row, and that has knocked them from number 1 in the draft down to number 8. They're in no man's land. They need a quarterback. They got too far to go to trade for one, and by the way, no trading partner. It looks like a 2-rookie quarterback draft. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. The teams at the top of the draft, it picks 1, 2, and 3. They all need quarterbacks. So they're not going to trade that spot away. So I don't think the Raiders are going to walk out of this draft with a surefire rookie quarterback. They'll probably take one later in the draft who's got way more variability to him. Maybe Sam Darnold goes to Las Vegas. I don't recommend it, but that may end up being something that happens, and maybe they trade for Sam Darnold. But right now, I don't know who's going to be throwing passes for the Raiders. Other options besides Sam Darnold. Russell Wilson will be a free agent. Justin Fields, Cooper Rush. I mean, those are the best free agents outside of Sam Darnold. So, Ian, I have some worry there. I am the guy willing to take a tight end in the first round. I am that guy. I hate trying to guess week in, week out. Is this the Cole Kmet game where he catches 3 passes for 30 yards? Or is this the 0-catch Cole Kmet game? I can't live a life like that, Ian. I have to have some level of comfort with my tight ends. So I will take Bowers at the end of the first round if the Raiders have found a way to a functional quarterback.
And again, the fact he did all this all of this year without a functioning quarterback gives us a pretty nice floor to be working with here. But no, it's a good point. Outside of a really major trade that I don't think we're necessarily anticipating, tough to see a just truly elite quarterback landing in Las Vegas. It'd be cool if it happens. I get it. But even with, Colorado's Shedeur Sanders and Miami's Cam Ward, I mean, I like to watch them in my own time and everything. But Dane Brugler for The Athletic, in my opinion, best in the business when it comes to breaking these guys down. And when he was talking about, Cam Ward, actually said that if this were last year's draft, he'd be more so in that J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix QB4 to QB7 range, as opposed to vying for one of those top 3 spots. Similar sentiment for Shedeur Sanders. So maybe we don't actually have, one of these Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels level talents at the top. Again, if Brock Bowers is going to continue to be just the overall heartbeat of the offense and have a decent quarterback, should be fine enough out there. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be the difference between a first round and maybe a later second or third round pick. Either way, you're going to be drafting him high and presumably feeling pretty good about that. Let's talk about someone else who might not even just be a first round pick, maybe the 101. Yeah. Saquon Barkley passes the 2,000-yard mark. Say 2K, SB 2K. We'll come up with something, punnier here in a bit. But yes, here's the list ever, Charch. Eric Dickerson, Adrian Peterson, Jamal Lewis, Barry Sanders, Derrick Henry, Terrell Davis, Chris Johnson, OJ Simpson, not J.K. Simpson. I'll work on those notes. And then, of course, Saquon Barkley. So the question, Charge, 1, do you see Saquon playing next week against the Giants? Wow. You guys really think the NFL isn't scripted? And 2, if he does play, do you think he can go ahead and break that record?
I like that we didn't bother putting OJ Simpson on this list. It's like,
job. Okay, and 14 games.
We don't put murderers on this list. They're out. That's it. You murder somebody, we don't put you on the list. Eagles are locked into the number 2 seed. By the way, Adrian Peterson, so close. Man, I remember that final game. He destroyed the Packers, rolled up 180 yards on the Packers, and he was so close to breaking the record. I wish I would have happened. Anyway, Eagles locked up the number 2 seed. So now, so Eagles have nothing to play for, but Ian, I think we can agree. Nick Sirianni is petty enough that he would love to stick it to a division rival by helping Saquon Barkley break Dickerson's record. But I don't think it's going to happen. If you recall yesterday, Sirianni pulled Barkley the moment he got to the 2,000 yards. So he let him get the 2,000 yards, and then he pulled him for the game. And now he's sitting at 2,005, as you can see on your screen. Say whatever you want about Sirianni, but dude is a cockroach. He is a survivor. He has survived churning 4 different coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinators, over the last 2 years, and he's still standing, and their team's a number 2 seed. So I can't see Sirianni taking the risk of Barkley or anybody else, any other starter, getting hurt in a meaningless Week 18 game, especially when they don't have a bye the week after that, if anybody did get dinged up. So I don't think we're going to see Barkley. Do you see it differently, Ian?
No, they're completely and utterly locked into the 2 seed. So everything would make sense to go ahead and rest. Again, probably the front runner for offensive player of the year this season. But, Charge, let's say Sirianni does get petty. Let's say they do go out there and they try to, they got Kenny Pickett under center still, and they try to run the ball with Saquon. If you're the Giants, you go 11 men in the box every single play. Give up 900 passing yards if that's what it takes. You cannot let Saquon break this record on you. Come on.
Well, now the question is, hypothetically, could Kenny Pickett throw for 900 yards? If you didn't guard any of his receivers, could he get to 900? I don't know. I don't know that that's a possibility.
I'm down to find out. Either way, do not let Saquon break that record on you. So again, guys, eventful Sunday, but with fantasy football pretty much wrapped up in traditional redraft leagues, it is time to get a look ahead to the playoffs, specifically in the CHOP-ionship. So plenty of good strategy talk coming up next. First, though, a quick word to our friends over at DraftKings. Grab your favorite team's jersey and some snacks and head to the couch for another Sunday of action-packed football. You can get even closer to the action with my partners at DraftKings. And right now, all new DraftKings customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using the promo code FantasyLife. The crown is yours. That's right. New customers get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins after betting just $5. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use the promo code FantasyLife and bet just $5 on any wager to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code FantasyLife only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, Charge. Guillotine Leagues for the 2024 regular season might be over, but the CHOP-ionship is just getting started, and we here at Fantasy Life are awfully excited to go ahead and get back in on some fantasy action. And of course, what better way to play than having the potential to get your team's, head cut off after every single week. So, Charge, let's go through the CHOP-ionship, again, our flagship tournament here ahead of the playoffs, and just tell the people, what it's all about.
Yeah, here's the CHOP-ionship. It's Guillotine Leagues in the playoffs with the hot chopping action that you know and love from Guillotine Leagues. Here is how it works. There is no draft. You're just going to choose your favorite 14 playoff-bound players. You can select up to 3 on any one NFL team. So you could have a roster with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Mark Andrews if you wanted. Your total roster will look like this. 1 quarterback, and this is the most important thing that you're going to take out of this roster. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, and 2 flex that cannot be a quarterback. So your 1 quarterback selection is really important because there is no bench. Your roster is going to score every single week that your players are alive, and there's no free agency. You're not going to change. Once you pick that roster, that is your roster. As soon as their games start, they are locked onto your team for the rest of the playoffs. Then, at the end of every week, the bottom 25% of scoring teams for that week get chopped. So, a lot of strategy, especially around week 1. You're going to want to put some 1 seeds on your team, probably. But you got to survive week 1. You can't put too many players from the 1 seed that have that bye, because the bottom 25% are going to get chopped at the end of round 1, and those players are going to get you no points. So, Ian, a lot of strategy on the roster composition in the CHOP-ionship.
I was about to say, so we can only roster 1 quarterback?
Can only roster 1 quarterback. You got to. That's your most important decision that you need to make with this roster, is you have to get that right.
I was about to say, so if I wanted to try to roll with Patrick Mahomes, already got the 1 seed clinched, I'm just praying, to every single fantasy god out there that the rest of the squad can pick up the slack enough to advance?
Yes, but the advantage you're going to have, because these contests, the CHOP-ionships, can have as few people as 25, as many as 500. How many people are going to have the stones to put Patrick Mahomes on their roster, knowing that you're going to get no points out of him in the first round, and you have to survive the first round. You have to be in the top 75%. So that might be a way that you can differentiate your team by having the guts to take a seed from a seed number 1 on your roster.
And that is where things get tough. I mean, I was looking up the history of 1 seeds in the playoffs recently, Charge, and, got to see some nice scars reopen from some disappointing Cowboys losses in recent years. But since 2013, 14 of 22 1 seeds, that's a good 64% hit rate, have made the Super Bowl. So from that standpoint, I would think, okay, we should want to lean on the 1 seed. Statistically speaking, they have the best chance, the best probability of advancing to the Super Bowl. But again, that first round is also going to be equally important. So for you, I guess, as the tournament size gets larger, is that when you're willing to embrace a bit more variance with everything?
That's exactly right. And the more players you're playing against, you just have to have more outliers that hit, and you have to find new ways to win that other people aren't going to have. If you're in a 25-person league, I don't think I'm risking Patrick Mahomes. If I'm in a 500-person league, I'm seriously considering exactly that kind of strategy. And, maybe if it's the Lions in the number 1 seed, that thing could get really interesting. Although let's try not to talk that into existence. Okay. We're on this show, we are clearly Minnesota Sunday night to take down the number 1 seed. Oh, let's make it happen, baby. And by the way, speaking of scars, my Minnesota Vikings, Ian, have lost 6 straight NFC championship games. Imagine being 1 game away from the Super Bowl 6 times and losing all of them. That's my adult lifetime with my Minnesota Vikings right there.
I am hoping, as someone who's, real life favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. That's been over for a while now. We've come to accept that. Vikings versus the Bills. It's one fan base could be so jubilant. That'd be perfect.
Yes,
Sorry, Lions
perfect.
fans. I know, but this is a Vikings fan podcast, so.
Yeah,
Whew.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic.
Well,
that's two fan bases that deserve it right there.
Absolutely. Chiefs, you got yours already. You'll probably get more. You'll probably get this year, for being honest. And let's accordingly talk about the Super Bowl favorite, who we do want the most exposure to in the championship. So again, the catch here is we got to get through that first week without the 1 seed, whether that's going to be Detroit or Minnesota will be decided here on Sunday night. Kansas City obviously still sitting pretty in the AFC with that locked up. So out of this handy dandy list, Church, looking at the top 6 Super Bowl favorites, Chiefs, Lions, Bills, Ravens, Eagles, and Vikings. Who do you want the most exposure to right now?
Well, all right. First, I'm taking the Chiefs out because of the week 1 bye. And this offense isn't so good that I've got to have Chiefs. So I'm taking Chiefs off the board. They're not going. I'm interested in Buffalo and Baltimore as 2 and 3 seeds and teams that would be hosting in round 1 and have plenty of juice with them. Talk more about that in a minute. Philly, maybe Detroit. If Detroit ends up as the 5 seed, they might get interesting there. But I'm going to bring it down to 2 players. So let me give you 2 that I couldn't really break the tie on this. Let's start with Lamar Jackson, who I think you have to try to figure out what you're going to do with Lamar. Highest scoring player in fantasy football. He can give you 4 games, Ian. He's going to play in the wild card round. He could very well be playing in the Super Bowl. And the other part about Lamar Jackson, even if he doesn't play the 4 games, Ian, he could give you 4 games worth of fantasy numbers in 2 games. I mean, he could double up, say Sam Darnold, Patrick Mahomes. And if you don't roster Jackson, you're basically making a statement that says this: Baltimore's going to be an early exit, which is possible because they bow out a little earlier than we want in the playoffs most years. But I think they're going to be. I think they had a great chance of getting the Super Bowl this year. Yeah. Or you think just like Derrick Henry is just going to run Baltimore through the playoffs, and it's going to be all Derrick Henry and nothing left for Lamar Jackson. So before I get to my second guy in, what are your thoughts on Lamar Jackson, and is he somebody you're going to put on your CHOPionship roster?
Absolutely, and I think some of the playoff just failures have been a bit overstated. Okay. I mean, you look, I understand they have happened. I'm not trying to, rewrite history here, but even last year against the Chiefs, if Zay Flowers can hold on to that ball, 6 extra inches. Charge story of a lot of our lives. I mean, Zay Flowers, man, could have scored the touchdown and tied things up, and who knows what happens there in overtime. Chiefs came out hot and everything. I know Baltimore was home. They deserved to get that win and everything, but man, that game was ridiculously close. The Bills game, we had that super long pick 6, then Lamar gets concussed. Who knows what could have happened during the final quarter and a half of that game. Then before that, younger career Lamar, even in a loss against the Titans, I'm looking at the box score right now in 2019. My man's at 365 passing yards and 143 rushing yards. And that is the funny part that we've seen with both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson some of these recent weeks. Like, yes, when they're winning and everything is good, they're going to put up points. But my God, there is nothing scarier than facing off against a Lamar or Josh Allen team when their actual team is in comeback mode.
Oh, absolutely true. And that's so Lamar Jackson, I think, very much in play for that one quarterback selection that you need to make. And then the other maybe favorite, as we look at teams that look strong, as teams that have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, Jahmyr Gibbs. Lions can put up 40 points on any team, Ian. And considering the Lions defense, they need the 40 points in a lot of these games. And Jared Goff can distribute the ball to a lot of different people, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tim Patrick and Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta and also Jahmyr Gibbs. But the thing is, Gibbs is the sole focus of the running game with Montgomery down. He's going to get like 100% of Detroit's rushing touchdowns are going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. And if they play 4 games, I feel like Gibbs can be a big difference maker.
It sounds like Montgomery is hoping to return the divisional round. He got his 3rd doctor reference. Someone finally said, all right, dude, we'll let you play if you want it that bad enough. So hopefully he's back then. But again, it's more of a target date. And even once he's back, it wouldn't be surprising if they do just wind up rolling a bit more with Gibbs. And you're not kidding, Church. I mean, last week he racked up 109 yards on the ground, a touchdown, caught 4 passes for 45 yards. I played him in a few leagues. I felt like I got off easy. You know, I was expecting 30, 40 points out there. You only see 20 or 25, and it's like, all right, could have been a lot worse out here. So certainly that Lions backfield would, I think we can agree, be the most fantasy-friendly situation to get that feature back. As great as King Henry and even Saquon Barkley are, again, it's just those offenses where you're losing some of the goal line touchdowns, not getting the same targets. Really, Detroit was, it's been ideal for fantasy football running backs. They've had two dudes consistently being in the top 12 better part of the last 3 years. Certainly going to be, probably the injury to keep an eye on here over the next couple of weeks. So good stuff there. However, Church, talked about some of the chalkier teams. How about the non-chalk teams? The squads that aren't necessarily as, likely to make the Super Bowl. That said, maybe a run could be right around the corner. Chargers peaking at the right time, perhaps?
Is the offense peaking at the right time, though, Ian? I mean, this defense, the Chargers' defense is pretty good. I don't know.
76 points last 2 weeks, Charge. People are talking.
Not bad. Lad McConkey might be interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about him down the road. He's somebody you could give some consideration to. J.K. Dobbins, nobody talking about at all. If you want a differentiator, it might be J.K. Dobbins as the lead back on a team that we know wants to run a lot, but hadn't been running over the last 6 weeks or so while J.K. Dobbins was out because Gus Edwards isn't very good. So they'd largely gone away from the run, but with J.K. Dobbins back, fresh legs, and you're looking for some people to differentiate your squad, that might be somebody that could help you out. Remember, early in the season, J.K. Dobbins was the betting leader for comeback player of the year. He was running that well. And then he slowed down a little bit, played hurt, and then he just went on IR. And we just sort of forgot about Dobbins. I kind of like Dobbins as a sneaky late add to my team if I'm going to pick somebody from more of these long shots and look, one or two of the people from these teams are going to have some of these teams are going to advance more than people think. And your ability to harvest a good player off of that roster is going to be critical here.
Agree with everything with McConkey and Dobbins. It's just one of the more centralized, offenses out there. Accordingly, the Chiefs have 3 running backs right now. Worthy's been coming up, but we still got Hopkins, Hollywood, Kelsey doing their things. With the Chargers, again, it does seem to be one of the more straightforward, shout out to Aikman, Emmett, Irvin back in the day. One of the more straightforward triplet situations out there that we can fully get behind, which is important in Guillotine when, again, we can only roster 3 players from the same team. But again, some of these, lesser teams out there, if you want to call them that, Packers, Chargers, Rams, Commanders, Steelers, and the Texans. So I would just say out of this group, Charge, and let's face it, Buccaneers probably going to be in there as long as they can get past, the big bad Spencer Rattler-led Saints over here in Week 18. But just in terms of the quarterbacks that I think could realistically go out there, outduel their counterpart for 4 straight weeks, I think it's Justin Herbert at the top of the list for me. And after that, probably Jordan Love. But Baker, I feel like I'm disrespecting Baker now.
Well, and what about Jaden Daniels? I mean, we've seen the Commanders take down the Eagles 2 weeks ago. Granted, it was without Jalen Hurts for most of that game. And again, Jaden Daniels could do in one. He could effectively double up the score of Jordan Love, right? So if you were if you get 2 games out of Jaden Daniels, it might be as much as 3 or 4 out of somebody else.
Yeah, and Jordan Love, he's played good football this year and everything, but the Packers are one of these teams. It's not quite the same as the Eagles last year because they had such a great run, but I feel like the Packers are where they are despite not having fully played their best football yet. But it's about to be January, Church. I kind of would have liked teams to maybe show off their best football by this point of the year. So very tough. Again, I would lean Chargers here. If you had to go out on a limb one of these teams, though, Church, at the end of the day, who would it be?
Buccaneers.
Ooh,
I'd go off of that list. I'd go Buccaneers. I know we're going to have an opportunity to talk more Bucs in a couple of moments, so I'll give you the full rationale on Tampa. So I'm a Vikings guy. The last thing I want is for the Vikings to lose on Sunday, drop down to the 5 seed, and have to travel to Tampa. And there's a scenario where that happens. Tampa's the team I do not want to play because Baker Mayfield's slinging it. Well, again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. That team worries me.
Buccaneers have beat the Lions and Eagles this year, same season. Yeah. That happened. People forget. We'll forget. Yeah. Much more Guillotine playoff talk to get to, guys. But first, a quick word from our friends over at Bud Light.
It's just
Sunday. Time to suit up.
This is like half zip, kind of a quarter zip.
And sacrifice your body.
This is fun.
Because no matter how hard you football, it's easy to Sunday.
All right, Charch, we already teased some of these player versus player, situations we're going to be grappling with as we get into our championship drafts here, and mentioned this one before, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Are you confident in actually stacking these guys on the same roster?
Well, I get the highest scoring quarterback and I get the second highest scoring running back. So yeah, I mean, I feel like the first thing I have to do when I put together my CHOP-ionship roster is figure out Lamar Jackson. That is like job number one. Am I in on Lamar Jackson as my one quarterback, or am I pivoting somewhere else? And I almost feel like I need to have two entries or multiple entries so I can divide that up as the Lamar Jackson entry and the one that isn't. Because if you have Lamar Jackson, and I think they're a great chance to play 4 games, which is such a huge part of this, you've got the highest scoring quarterback in fantasy football this year and many years. So you almost feel like you're almost just being contrarian to find somebody else. You could still go to Josh Allen. There are other quarterbacks you can use that can give you similar upside. But I feel like that's the first thing you have to figure out. Then job number 2, if you've got Lamar Jackson, is do I burn another spot on Derrick Henry? Can they both have great games? And just the reality is they both can. And we've seen it many, many times. And one of them, if one of them has a dud game, there's a good chance the other one didn't, assuming the Ravens don't just get blown out and don't score any points. So I lean yes. I think it's a completely viable strategy to have both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on your roster. Ian, how about you? Do you see it differently? I see Baltimore as a candidate to play 4 teams, and I want good players. What do you think?
And look, the overall season-long ranks, as you said, getting top 2 players, pretty easy there. But we've also seen plenty of overlap this season. 8 separate weeks, both Lamar and Derrick Henry have finished inside their positions top 12, and you're buying into the Ravens winning. So that would be the scenario where Derrick Henry is getting his. Sorry to open up some old wounds, Ravens fans, but last year, Ravens running backs, before they had Derrick Henry, had at least 15 carries in every single game, until the AFC Championship, when Ravens running backs combined for just 6 total carries across 60 minutes of football. I do believe Todd Monken, very smart man. I'm sure he's learned from that, and I'm sure he will not let that happen again. And the thing is, like we've seen this with Baltimore before, really, I've done these studies in off-season charts, the impact of dual threat quarterbacks on running backs in fantasy, and generally it's not good. The quarterbacks scramble more. They don't get the same targets to running backs. And then we also see them factor into the equation near the goal line. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, getting tush pushed. Ravens don't really do that. When they get inside the 5, we do see them lean on the running back. And that has allowed, some of these just, I guess, exceptions to break out, like Derrick Henry and even Mark Ingram a couple years ago. Yeah.
And, Lamar Jackson, as great as he is, he doesn't have that big, powerful body that Jalen Hurts has and Josh Allen has for that tush push from inside the 5. They're going to hand off to Derrick Henry. And so, yeah, that's, it's one of the things. And one of the reasons I was wrong about Saquon Barkley was I was worried that his quarterback was going to eat too many of his touchdowns and that Barkley was going to be sitting on a touchdown total closer to what Swift had last year, which was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8. And yeah, that didn't pan out. They both ended up getting fed. But it is a worry when you're looking at players whose quarterbacks eat those easy touchdowns from inside the 5, and Derrick Henry doesn't have that worry.
I think the lesson with some of the free agent running back, misses, as someone else who thought a little bit too long and hard about, Saquon and Henry going through, is again, having gone back and tried to look at all these teams changing, running backs changing teams in free agency, it usually doesn't work out, but we can't just be taking these big sweeping notions. I think what we've learned, Charge, from David Montgomery, now Saquon and Derrick Henry, if you have a good team, a good offensive line, maybe the running back can be the piece that doesn't necessarily take them to elite status in the NFL, although obviously really good teams working right now. But that could be the situation where a running back changes teams, and I think we can get more behind it. It's not like these guys got paid out of nowhere to go lead some crap team. We knew they were going to be good. Yeah, we had some questions about their efficiency, but put Josh Jacobs in there as well, man. Probably overthought it. And again, if we want the running backs to be a just result of their team's environment and we go through that, yeah, maybe we should be paying a bit more attention to great teams like the Ravens, like the Eagles, like the Packers, and just rolling with whoever they wind up putting, at RB. So I'm sure we'll have plenty more discussions about if those guys can keep it going into 2025. But for now, let's stick with a less clear running back situation, and that is over with the Kansas City Chiefs. Who do you want more exposure to, Charge? Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt?
No, well, speaking of washed up veterans, that brings us to Kareem Hunt. And I'm sitting on a big take here. Now, and Ian, I've been wrong on Isaiah Pacheco through the month of December. When he came back off IR, I was on this show optimistic that he would take over a workhorse role from Kareem Hunt. That has not panned out, and it is not stopping me from sitting on another big theory that Andy Reid is purposely holding back Pacheco, A, to make me look like an ass, B, because he wants Pacheco fresh for the postseason. They want fresh legs in January while the rest of the league is laboring from a long NFL season. Now, I don't have any inside information. I don't have any way to know for sure, but here's two key pieces of evidence to support my theory that it's going to be all Pacheco in the postseason. Number one, Kareem Hunt sucks. Hey. Among the 30 runners with 150 carries this year, here's where Kareem Hunt ranks in some key metrics. In yards per carry, dead last, 30th out of 30. In avoided tackle rate, Kareem Hunt, dead last, 30th out of 30. And in yards after contact, Kareem Hunt, 29th out of 30. He's not good. And Reid is hardly, and here's item number 2, Ian. Reid is hardly working Pacheco. Just 6 carries and 9 carries the last 2 weeks. That's it. He's resting him up because they're coasting into the number 1 seed. They didn't have to use him. So if you're like me and you believe that the Chiefs are resting Isaiah Pacheco, he becomes rosterable in the championship, even with that week 1 bye, because he should get a workhorse level of usage in the playoffs, if my theory is correct.
So everything you just brought up is true. Kareem Hunt's not explosive. He's not breaking tackles. But what he is doing out there is getting exactly however many yards it is that the Chiefs are trying to pick up. And he's doing it better than almost anyone. I love the stat success rate. You know, it's a good, yes, you want explosive plays. Chiefs have not had that for large portions of the season. But when you do look at their offense, they continue to be awesome in terms of success rate. Really has been a death by 1,000 paper cuts sort of experience. Again, I'm not going to pretend and say, oh, no, Chiefs offense has actually been beautiful. I hate when these foam guys try to force that down our throats, pause. But, you know, when you just look at it, Kareem Hunt, 55.5% success rate this year, Charch. Only Bijan Robinson and Derrick Henry have been better there. And again, success rate is defined as, I believe, picking up 40% of the yardage necessary on first down, 60% on second down, 100% on third and fourth down. So hasn't been overly pretty, but it's not like it's just some random jag off the street as well. Charge, let's face it, if it wasn't for some off-the-field domestic violence issues, Kareem Hunt might have never lost this RB1 job, you know, that he had to leave town for back in 2018. So a long time ago, I've had quite a few things happen since 2018, but I don't know, man. I'm looking at this. I'm wondering if it could be more of a 2016 Patriots, LeGarrette Blount, Deion Lewis, James White, 2017 Eagles. Again, LeGarrette Blount. That was kind of funny. Jay Ajayi and Corey Clement. Because that's the other thing. Look, which running back could be the 3-down workhorse and be the most explosive doing it? I do think it's Isaiah Pacheco. But, man, we've got a good 5-6 week stretch now that tells us 3 guys could be involved here.
I hope not. That's not what I want to see. Pacheco has been so much better than Hunt over the, since Pacheco got into the league. And, Hunt played his way out of Cleveland because he wasn't very good. And that's a team that needed running back help and running back depth. And they decided to let Kareem Hunt walk. And I don't know, to my eyes, I think he gives you no more than what that offense can generate for him. And at some point in the playoffs, I think you need a running back who can do more than just give you what your offensive line, hands you on a silver platter.
Do you like the thought of maybe getting extra off the board and going with Piron? Because, I'm looking at this, and let's face it, Pacheco better than Hunt, but that's a pretty low bar, as I think we've established it with what's going on. I can see the Chiefs saying, hey, Patrick Mahomes, you're dropping back 50, 55 times out here, and Piron usually has been the pass down back in those situations.
Boy, tempting is just a pure differentiator. Yeah, Pirine maybe, and you hope you find your way to 10 PPR points every game. Yeah, maybe there could be a little something there, a little juice there.
And again, that's, hey, we're going 500 person championship, maybe a bit more willing to get off the board there. You're just playing with 10 of your friends. Maybe that's when we go a bit more chalky. So let's move on to some wide receivers, though. Guys who are much faster than Kareem Hunt. I think we can agree. Jameson, Williams, or Xavier Worthy, Charge. Who do you want more exposure to?
Well, interesting question by our producer, Matt, because these guys are built similarly. They're both vertical speed guys. And I had gone down a path and scripted an answer, and then it turned out to be so close, I actually flipped it. So this to me was a difficult one. Xavier Worthy becoming a much more reliable and safe fantasy contributor. He's topped an 18% target share in 5 of the past 6 games. And over the last 2 weeks, it spiked up to 29 and 30% target share for Xavier Worthy. And even more interesting to me, Worthy spiking in these 2 usage games with Hollywood Brown back. I had assumed Hollywood Brown would eat into Xavier Worthy's work. Has not been the case at all. But I can't choose Worthy, and 3 reasons. One is I don't get him for the first round of the playoffs. We've talked about it many times now. Chiefs will be on bye and for the first round of the playoffs, and I could get chopped in the first round of the playoffs in the CHOPionship. And then despite being 15-1, Ian, the Chiefs just feel weirdly vulnerable to me anyway. You know, this quality of offense, their defense is very reliable. The offense, Kansas City is in top 30 points in a game all year. I mean, compare that to Detroit. Detroit averages 32 points. Kansas City hasn't scored 30 yet this year. I don't think
Haven't
there's
scored more than
enough.
30, but yes, I hear you.
Thank you. Is it more? They've hit 30? Okay. They had 29 this week. That's just, I don't know. This offense just doesn't feel explosive enough for me to necessarily go to Worthy. And I love Jameson Williams getting shorter work, right? So for most of his career, he's been like long bomb, low percentage guy, low volume. If you got to make do with 2 catches and you hope one of them's for a bomb. Now they've really pulled in his ADOT much closer to the field, and he's just giving you more reliable and predictable upside, and also still giving you some of the long bombs, which is great. Williams has been a top 8 fantasy receiver on 3 occasions this year, including last week. I just feel like he's trending the right way, and I just trust the Detroit offense more. What do you think?
Worthy's been getting more volume, but not all volume is created equal. And Worthy's volume earlier in the year was more of the JMO downfield variety, or those deeper crossers that especially, Williams has been making a living on this year. But recently, Worthy, it's a bunch of screens, some handoffs. They're just getting them the ball in space, which, hey, it's working. Chiefs offense is looking better now than it did a month ago. I think that was what they originally had in mind with him before the Hollywood Brown injury. But to me, it's just Jameson Williams, in my opinion, right now is the better real-life professional football wide receiver. He's in a passing game that we've seen higher highs from throughout the season, and he's going to be playing the first game. So I'm with you, Paul, on the surface. I do think it's, close between the guys. If we were ranking them in week 17 or 18, I think we could talk ourselves into Worthy a bit more easily. But when it is that close between the guys and we have the extra game being taken away from Worthy, it's a tough call. That said, not to speak into existence, as you mentioned earlier, if we do see both these guys, getting that first round bye, certainly becomes a bit closer there. And then at that point, I just think it comes down to who do you prefer between the Lions and Chiefs offenses. Talk about another wide receiver situation, one we do not have to worry about, in a situation of maybe them getting a first round bye. Puka, Nacka, or Ladd McConkey. Now, Charch, since week 8, which is when Puka returned, he has been the wide receiver 4 in Fantasyland. Maybe even would have been higher if he wasn't ejected for that, pretty just lame punch to be ejected for, calling a spade here. Ladd McConkey, though, in the same stretch, wide receiver 11, averaging 18 PPR points per game, and certainly made many fantasy managers happy with his performance here just this last Saturday. So McConkey or Puka, who you got?
Well, if I've done my playoff seeding math right here, it looks like the Rams' most probable first round of the playoffs will be hosting the Packers. Chargers likely travel to Baltimore or Buffalo. That's tough. Traveling to Baltimore or Buffalo that is difficult. And the Rams have a real chance of beating the Packers. To me, this means the Rams more likely to win. I get 2 games. I think I'm going to have to lean to Puka Nacka. And part of it also, by the way, Cooper Kupp just getting phased out of this Rams offense. Cooper Kupp's last 3 weeks, 3 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets. Puka Nacka over that same stretch, 31 combined targets, Ian. 31. At some point, I need the ball in the hand of my guys, and Puka Nacka is that right now. In one game, Puka Nacka could have more targets than Ladd McConkey would have across 2 games. So yeah, I got to go Puka Nacua on this as hosting potentially the Packers here, and I think they've just got a better chance of winning and getting out of that first round. What do you think?
The first round matchups, I don't have a great rebuttal. It would make the spread's going to tell us that the Chargers have a worse chance of getting out of the first round than the Rams. I'm sure that will be the case. In terms of what team, though, is better and playing better right now, I think it's the Chargers. It's not even close. I mean, we're talking about 2 10-6 teams, but the Chargers plus 87 point differential. That's the 4th best in the AFC. The Rams are minus 14. Minus 14 point differential for a 10-6 team is pretty crazy. That's 9th in the NFC. The Rams, okay, they beat the Bills. That was one of the best games of the season. Incredible performance by Matthew Stafford. Since then, 3 games, they haven't cracked 20 points. They've only scored 3 total offensive touchdowns. So I know Stafford's been a little bit banged up seemingly out there, and it's not maybe the most complete team in the world, but Cooper Kupp, probably I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's just not 100% healthy. But I do think the Chargers more complete, better overall football team. But you know what? The Ravens and Bills are more complete than them as well. So very tough predicament. If we did have to, say, hey, we're getting 4 games out of both these guys, we knew, football gods say, hey, guys, it's going to be Rams, Chargers, Super Bowl. Who you want here? Yeah, it's Puka Nacua at that point. I don't think that's a huge debate. But again, for me, it gets lagged closer when you consider, as I said earlier, Chargers, I think, could be a dark horse to make some noise here. We will see how that goes down. Let's talk about some guys who would not be, gracing the top 10 of our wide receiver rankings anytime soon. That said, we sure do love the offense. Bills wide receivers, Charch. Yeah. Which one do you want exposure to?
Well, the best answer here is probably none, if we're being honest. So here's your full season touchdown total for the Bills receivers. Khalil Shakir, 4. Keon Coleman, 4. Amari Cooper, 4. And just 2 of them with the Bills. And he's been with the Bills, as a reminder, since week 7. Amari Cooper, just the 2 touchdowns. I'll take Khalil Shakir if I'm in a smaller CHOP-ionship league. I'm in with 25 people or 50 people, because then I'm skewing more towards safety. And Shakir, one of our preseason favorites on this show, he's been by a mile the most reliable of the Bills receivers. He's got that 80% completion rate that we like to talk about because he catches everything that comes his way. Everybody else, it gets pretty shaky. Keon Coleman's targets in the 3 games since his return is just 2, 2, and then 7 yesterday. Amari Cooper's targets, the last 3 games, 0, 2, and 3. But then there's Khalil Shakir. Last 4 games, 8 targets, 7 targets, 6, and 6 targets. I mean, he's just super safe. Now, if I'm in a much larger CHOP-ionship league where I've got hundreds of teams to compete against, well, then, Ian, I'm going to take a flyer on Keon Coleman because he gives me the big play downfield upside. He's averaging 14 yards per pass attempt. Terrific, beautiful touchdown in the back of the end zone yesterday. And maybe Keon Coleman, who got knocked out for that extended period with, I believe it was thumb injury. Maybe he was, maybe this is when this rookie puts it all together in the playoffs. Maybe it would have happened in December if not for the injury. Now maybe it happens in January. So I think he's sort of my dart throw in a bigger CHOP-ionship league. What do you think?
I think that's spot on, man. That's who I was going to go to, to put my Dwayne McFarland utilization hat on for a second. You look at the route rates from yesterday, and it really was a breakout performance of sorts for Keon Coleman. 97% routes out here. And yes, I understand it was a blowout, but hey, Khalil Shakir, 69%, which is nice, but also pretty normal just for his kind of slot usage. Amari Cooper, 38%, Mac Hollins, 55%, and then Tyrell Shavers, 3%, and had took that long screen to the house just to stick that extra dagger into Aaron Rodgers' gut and company. So again, it's really been tough. Mac Hollins has been someone regularly on the field, and the blowout game script matters. Amari Cooper, being taken out of the game for that head injury matters. We would expect him to be ready for the playoffs. But yeah, man, based on what we've seen, if I had to just, because I get it. Khalil Shakir is going to be that slot guy. He has the highest floor and everything, but it really does come down to who you pick in between Cooper, Keon, and Mac Hollins. And I'm with you. I got Keon right now. So really does seem to have that Josh Allen trust, throwing it downfield. I'm sure he'll get a bit overhyped going into next year because we're just going to keep trying to make this offense happen here in terms of the pass catchers involved. And, plenty of time to talk about that. But for these next couple of weeks, yes, I'm with you. Give me the rookie. Let's talk tight end now here for a second. I think we can probably all agree Travis Kelce deserves to be Mr. 101 for the playoffs. But beyond Kelce, Church, who, are you really trying to target the most?
Well, the 4 highest scoring tight ends don't play for teams that are going to make the playoffs, which is a little bit unusual. And even makes you even wondering, like, how important is a tight end to making a team's playoff prospects, right? I mean, so Brock Bowers, awesome season, won't make the playoffs. Trey McBride will not make the playoffs. George Kittle will not make the playoffs. Jonnu Smith almost certainly will not make the playoffs. It would take a lot to happen there.
Yeah.
I'm going to try Mark Andrews here before week 6. As a reminder of his season, by the way, before week 6, Mark Andrews, tight end 34, in behind A.J. Barner, Austin Hooper, Johnny Munt, and behind both of the other Baltimore tight ends, including Charlie Kolar. That's how bad it was for Mark Andrews.
Not Charlie Kolar.
Not Charlie Kolar. I dropped him outright, and I feel like that was the right thing to do in a couple of different leagues. I dropped Mark Andrews. Since then, tight end 2. He's on fire. He has scored in 5 straight games and 9 of the last 11, which brings us back to that week 6 moment. And fantasy football can just be a cruel, cruel game. What's remarkable about Mark Andrews' resurgence is that he's crushing really good teams. I'll give you an example. It's week 12, and the Chargers are the opponent. They've got the league's best tight end defense. They're allowing the fewest fantasy points to opposing tight ends. They haven't given up a touchdown all year long to the tight end position. Mark Andrews, touchdown, 44 yards, 5 catches. Yeah. And, for Andrews, he doesn't catch a lot of passes. He really is touchdown dependent. But if he keeps scoring touchdowns, you can be as touchdown dependent as you want. If you're going to keep scoring, I'm still interested. And he gets targeted in the red zone a lot. Since week 6, again, that's the pivot moment for Andrews. He has the second most end zone targets of all the tight ends in the league, Mark Andrews. So, hey, if he's going to keep scoring touchdowns, I am interested in Mark Andrews.
10 in his last 11 games. I mean, yeah, you just see the trust between him and Lamar. It's been there the whole career, but had a touchdown a couple weeks ago where, linebackers, running back, trying to cover him, back turn the quarterback. That's open in Lamar and Mark Andrews' book, and accordingly was able to come down with the contested score. So I'm with you. I have Mark Andrews. Still can give Travis Kelce number 1, but man, when considering that bye, would not fault anyone again for rolling with Andrews. So good stuff there. Now we do have a few teams that maybe aren't exactly guaranteed playoffs just yet to get to, right after a quick word to our friends over at Game Time. Charch, we both know there's nothing like being at a game in person, particularly if you're lucky enough to be at the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California. Go Buckeyes! Screw those Ducks. Unfortunately, didn't win my hundreds of thousands of dollars in best ball I was hoping for this weekend. So I'll be watching it from New York. But if I was going to Cali, I would be using Game Time to go ahead and get those tickets. They are in fact my go-to for finding amazing tickets, but not just for games, also for shows and concerts too. I was actually scrolling through the Game Time app the other day and I came across my favorite feature called Game Time Picks, and it is a total game changer. Game Time Picks curates your experience, showing you the best deals on great seats, and they make it so easy that it's truly a no-brainer, people. Seriously, Game Time takes all this, all the guesswork out of buying tickets. It is truly amazing. You can find out for yourself by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using promo code LIFE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LIFE, L-I-F-E, for $20 off your first purchase only at Game Time. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? Game time. All right, Charge, we mentioned it earlier. Tampa Bay not officially in the playoffs yet, but with that Falcons loss, all TB has to do is take down the Saints in Week 18. And I'll check the early lines here in a second. I'm guessing they're going to be at least 10-point favorites, if not more,
sure,
in that one.
Sure.
So if Tampa Bay makes it, which, again, spoiler, they probably will, how confident would you be in these Bucs players?
Really confident. This is my favorite sort of off the radar approach, is to go heavy Bucs. So they're going to beat the Saints. They're going to host in round 1, and they could easily play 2 games, maybe more. And the Bucs score so many points. 2 Buccaneer games could be worth 3 games from, say the Rams. They can outscore really any team. They've scored 24 or more points in 6 straight games. Ian, they've scored 24 or more points in 12 of the last 13. You never get duds out of this Buccaneers offense. Baker Mayfield, tempting. I mean, in a different format, I could probably do it, but I need 4 games for my quarterback, and I only get one quarterback. So I don't think I can go Baker Mayfield here. Now when I only get one quarterback for the whole thing, Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is going to be my guy. He, obviously he's awesome. We've talked about Bucky Irving at a lot of these Monday morning shows. Adore Bucky Irving. I think he's one of the 5 most talented runners in the NFL. Bucky is now officially a workhorse back. Consecutive games dominating the carries out of that Tampa Bay backfield. And I think Bucky's ownership is going to be pretty low. I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to take Bucky. I think there's too many people that worry that Tampa's going to be a one and done team. I think they get 2 games going. Hopefully they're not going to be playing my Vikings in the first round because I'm nervous about that matchup and it could work out that way. Bucky Irving, to me, would be the sneaky buck I'd want to pick up. How about you?
23 combined carries and targets yesterday for Bucky, just 7 for Rashad White. So I'm with you there. I do think riding the hot hand, going with Jalen McMillan as long as the rest of these guys are banged up could also be a nice, just a little bit lesser owned wide receiver out there. But otherwise, just put the eggs in the Mike Evans basket. Has not let us down yet. Just 85 more yards needed, by the way, to get to 1K again, which, just give the man his gold jacket already. Charge one more before we get out of here. If the Bengals make the playoffs, which again is a little bit more unlikely. We need, Carson Wentz and company to get the job done. Need a few things to happen, but man, if we do let Joe Burrow and company get some extra gameplay in January, how confident would you be in that offense?
Oh, well, now this is a really tough question. If the Bengals make it, they'll travel to Buffalo. That is a steep challenge. And you've seen the list of quarterbacks the Bengals have beaten this year. Bo Nix, Dorian Thompson-Robinson twice, Mason Rudolph, Cooper Rush, Desmond Ridder, Daniel Jones, Andy Dalton. That is great. One starting quarterback in. So how does Cincinnati go to Buffalo and beat Josh Allen? I mean, it just feels like you're probably going to get one game from the Bengals here. And granted, Joe Burrow playing out of his mind right now and honestly should be in the MVP conversation right now. And, the fact that he's just going to be others getting votes to me is a little unfair because Joe Burrow is, I think, the best quarterback in the league right now. Impossibly, he has thrown 3 touchdowns in 6 straight games. And if you go back 7 games, it's a 4-touchdown game. And if you go back 8 games, that was a 5-touchdown game. So he's thrown at least 3 touchdowns in 8 games. I mean, that's staggering. Even though the Bills just shut down Aaron Rodgers, they had allowed multiple passing touchdowns in 6 of the past 8. So, I mean, I think Burrow could get a little something done here, but I don't think they could get a win. And I would not have a lot of confidence rostering Bengals players. But tip of the hat to the Bengals for just being in this conversation at all right now at this point. And it's all because of what Joe Burrow's been able to do.
Would be condensed if they could make a run. Chase Brown now dealing with a high ankle sprain, so we'll see if he is going to be able to play through it. Maybe a little more Khalil Herbert, but man, if Burrow and company get to cook, the defense has been so bad they got to keep throwing the ball. And as it stands now, Church, sorry, Chris Godwin, minimum 8 games played. Number 1 wide receiver in PPR points per game, Jamar Chase. Number 2, T. Higgins. Not a bad year. So, guys, that is going to wrap up this edition, though, of the Fantasy Life Show. As you can tell, we will be here all off season long. Always a great day to be great over here on the Fantasy Life Show. So check out tomorrow, myself, Dwayne McFarland, utilization, and sheeshing it up as always. So for Charge, for producer Matt, for producer Kelsey, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning into the Fantasy Life Show. And until next time, take care, everybody.